I should have noticed sooner. That's what keeps me awake now. Months later, the realization that I'd become so good at ignoring the world around me that I didn't notice when someone disappeared from it entirely. Adrian lived in the apartment directly above mine. We'd exchanged the kind of pleasantries that neighbors do, brief smiles in the hallway, a nod when collecting mail, the occasional comment about the weather. He was in his mid-30s, I think. Neat appearance. Quiet. The kind of person who moved through the world leaving barely a ripple. Looking back, I wonder if that's why it happened to him. The holiday season had arrived with its usual chaos. The building hummed with activity, decorations appearing in windows, the smell of cooking drifting through vents, music playing at all hours. But above me, Adrian's apartment had gone silent. Completely, utterly silent. I noticed it on a Tuesday morning. I'd grown accustomed to the rhythm of his movements, the creak of his floorboards at 7:15 when he woke, the sound of his shower, the precise click of his door at 8:30 as he left for work. But that Tuesday, there was nothing. Just an absence that felt somehow heavier than silence should feel. By Thursday, the smell started. It wasn't strong at first. Just a faint sweetness in the hallway that made me wrinkle my nose when I passed Adrian's door. By Friday evening, it had become undeniable. Other tenants complained to the building manager, Mrs. Chen, who promised to investigate. I was coming home from work on Saturday when I saw her standing outside Adrian's door with two police officers. Mrs. Chen looked pale, her usual brisk efficiency replaced by something that might have been fear. She knocked 3 times, called Adrian's name, then used her master key. I should have kept walking. Should have gone into my own apartment and closed the door. But something kept me frozen there in the hallway, watching as Mrs. Chen pushed the door open. The smell that emerged made me gag. "Don't come in here," one of the officers said, but I'd already seen enough through the doorway. Adrian's apartment was in chaos. The couch was overturned. A lamp lay shattered on the floor. And there, on the beige carpet near the bathroom, was a dark stain that glistened wetly under the overhead light. The stain formed a trail, like something had been dragged. It disappeared into the bathroom. I heard one of the officers radio for backup, his voice tight with controlled urgency. Mrs. Chen stumbled out into the hallway, her hand pressed against her mouth. "Is he?" I started, but she shook her head. "There's no one in there," she whispered. No one at all. They kept us in the hallway for hours while more police arrived. Forensic people in white suits went in and out, carrying equipment, taking photographs. I sat on the floor outside my apartment, unable to stop staring at Adrian's open door. A detective with tired eyes interviewed me around midnight. "When did you last see Mr. Reeves?" she asked. I had to think. The days had blurred together in my routine. Maybe Tuesday? No, Monday evening. I passed him in the lobby. He was carrying groceries. Did he seem upset? Anxious? I don't know. We didn't really talk. Just nodded hello. The detective made a note. Did you hear anything unusual from his apartment? Arguments? Sounds of a struggle? I shook my head, feeling suddenly guilty. I wear headphones a lot, I admitted. I work from home. I try to block out everything. She studied me for a moment, and I wondered what she saw. A witness? Or just another isolated person, sealed in their own little bubble of existence? Mr. Reeves has no immediate family, she said finally. No one has reported him missing. His employer said he stopped showing up on Wednesday, but they assumed he was sick. You might be the last person who saw him. The thought settled over me like a weight. They sealed Adrian's apartment with police tape and left around 3 in the morning. I went back to my apartment but couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that dark stain, the way it had gleamed wetly in the light. Blood. It had to be blood. But if Adrian had been hurt, killed, where was his body? At 4:30, I heard it. A sound from above. A soft, rhythmic scratching, like fingernails dragging across wood. I sat up in bed, my heart hammering. The scratching continued, scratch, 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 deliberate and slow. It seemed to move across Adrian's floor, from one side of his apartment to the other. But Adrian's apartment was supposed to be empty. Locked. Sealed by police. The scratching stopped abruptly, leaving a silence so profound it felt like pressure against my eardrums. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my living room with every light on, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the sound to return. It didn't. But somehow, that was worse. Because as dawn light began to filter through my curtains, I became aware of something that made my skin crawl, the feeling of being watched. Not from outside, not from the windows. From above. As if someone was standing in Adrian's apartment, right above where I sat, looking down through the floor with invisible eyes. I told myself it was paranoia. Exhaustion. The natural human response to being near violence, to knowing that something terrible had happened just meters above my head. But I couldn't shake the certainty that whatever had happened to Adrian, whatever had left that trail of blood in that empty, violated space, wasn't finished yet. I became obsessed. It's embarrassing to admit, but it's true. In the days following Adrian's disappearance, I couldn't think about anything else. I found myself standing in the hallway, staring at his door with its official police seal, trying to make sense of what had happened. The police concluded it was either an accident or a voluntary disappearance. No signs of forced entry, the detective told me when she stopped by 3 days later. His wallet and phone are missing. His car is gone. He probably left on his own and the scene was, well, we're investigating. But she didn't sound convinced, and I wasn't either. I started paying attention to my neighbors for the first time since I'd moved in 6 months ago. The building had 12 apartments across 4 floors, and I'd barely spoken to anyone beyond Adrian and Mrs. Chun. The couple in 3B avoided eye contact when I tried to ask them about Adrian. The student in 2A just shrugged and said he kept to himself. Even Mrs. Chen seemed evasive when I caught her in the lobby. These things happen, she said, her accent thickening with discomfort. People leave. People have secrets. Best not to ask too many questions. But the blood, I started. The police will handle it, she interrupted, her tone brokering no argument. You should do the same. Stop thinking about it. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. On Thursday evening, exactly 1 week after Adrian disappeared, I encountered old Mr. Kowalski from the 4th floor in the mailroom. He was the building's longest resident, having lived here for nearly 20 years. Did you know Adrian well? I asked as casually as I could manage. Mr. Kowalski's watery eyes studied me. You're the one from 2C, yes? The one who works at home? I nodded. He was quiet for a long moment, then spoke so softly I had to lean in to hear. I saw him the last few days. Before whatever happened. He was on his balcony, late at night. I have trouble sleeping, you understand. I was outside smoking, don't tell Mrs. Chan, and I heard him. Heard him doing what? Talking. Arguing. But there was no one else there. Mr. Kowalski's hands shook slightly as he sorted through his mail. He kept saying, I know it's you, and stop pretending. Over and over. I thought maybe he was on the phone, but the way he was looking around, spinning in circles like he was surrounded. He trailed off, shaking his head. I should have said something. Called someone. A chill ran down my spine. Did you tell the police? What would I tell them? That my neighbor was talking to himself? They'd think I was the crazy one. He shuffled toward the elevator, then paused. You should stop asking questions. Nothing good comes from knowing too much. That night, I took out the trash around 11. The dumpster area was poorly lit, illuminated only by a single flickering bulb. As I tossed my bag in, something white caught my eye. A crumpled piece of paper caught against the building's foundation, just below the row of first-floor windows. I almost left it there. Almost walked away. But something made me pick it up, smooth it out under the weak light. It was a note, handwritten in cramped, frantic letters. They're watching through the walls. Don't let them see you bleed. The paper trembled in my hands. The handwriting was shaky, almost illegible in places, as if written in extreme distress. There was no signature, no date. But somehow I knew, with that inexplicable certainty that sometimes grips us, that Adrian had written this. I looked up at the building, at the dark windows staring back like empty eyes. Adrian's apartment was on the 3rd floor, his balcony visible from where I stood. The police tape was still across his door, I knew. The apartment was supposed to be empty. But as I stood there in the dumpster area's flickering light, I could swear I saw movement in Adrian's window. A shadow passing across the glass. There and gone so quickly I might have imagined it. I stuffed the note into my pocket and hurried back inside, my heart pounding. In my apartment, I locked the door and engaged both the deadbolt and the chain. I pulled out the note again, reading it over and over. They're watching through the walls. Who was watching? And through what walls? Don't let them see you bleed. Why specifically bleeding? Was it connected to the blood trail in Adrian's apartment? I was still sitting at my kitchen table, the note spread before me, when I heard my apartment door handle jiggle. The sound was quiet but distinct, the rattle of someone testing whether the door was locked. I froze, barely breathing, my eyes fixed on the door handle. It jiggled again. Once, twice. Then stopped. I crept toward the door, my legs shaky, and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. The overhead lights hummed their usual fluorescent drone. Nothing moved. But something was different. Something was wrong. I opened the door, keeping the chain engaged, and peered out through the narrow gap. The hallway looked exactly as it always did, beige walls, worn carpet, the door to the stairwell at the far end. Then I looked down. There, on the carpet in front of my door, was a wet footprint. Just one. A bare foot, judging by the shape, with distinct toe impressions. The print glistened darkly in the hallway light. I followed its direction with my eyes. It pointed toward my door, as if someone had been standing exactly where I was now standing, looking in. And it led back toward Adrian's apartment. One single footprint. Wet. Dark. Leading from Adrian's sealed door to mine. I slammed my door shut, through both locks, and backed away until I hit the far wall of my living room. The logical part of my brain tried to rationalize it. Someone from the building. A leak somewhere. Spilled coffee. Anything but what it looked like, what it felt like. But I couldn't stop thinking about that footprint, the way it had gleamed wetly, the way it had pointed directly at my door. And I couldn't stop thinking about Adrian's note, "They're watching through the walls." I spent the rest of the night sitting on my couch with every light on, a kitchen knife on the cushion beside me, listening to every creak and groan of the old building. Listening for footsteps. Listening for the sound of my door handle moving again. But the only sound that came was that same soft scratching from above, starting around 4 in the morning. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Moving slowly across Adrian's floor. Coming from an apartment that was supposed to be empty. I didn't sleep for 3 days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that footprint. Every time the building settled, those normal sounds that you learn to ignore, the pops and creaks of old pipes and settling foundation, I jolted awake, convinced someone was outside my door. On Sunday morning, exhausted and jittery with too much coffee, I did something I'm not proud of. I waited until Mrs. Chen left for her weekly market trip, then I went upstairs to Adrian's floor. The police tape was still there, stretched across his door in an X pattern. Warning, do not cross. I stood there for a long moment, my hand hovering near the doorknob, knowing I was about to cross a line. But I wasn't planning to go inside. I was interested in something else. I'd noticed it weeks ago, back when Adrian was still just a neighbor I barely acknowledged. A small black camera mounted discreetly in the corner where the hallway met the ceiling, angled toward the doors. It was against building policy. Mrs. Chen was strict about unauthorized security devices, but Adrian had installed it anyway. I'd wondered at the time why he felt the need for extra security. Now I understood. He'd been afraid. The camera was still there, its small red light dormant. I dragged a chair from the stairwell landing and climbed up, my hands shaking. The camera was attached with simple adhesive mounting tape. It came away easily. In my apartment, I pried open the camera's casing. The SD card was still inside, a tiny chip that might contain the answers to everything. My laptop took forever to read it. When it finally loaded, I found myself looking at weeks of hallway footage, the timestamp in the corner marking each day. I scrolled backward through the timeline, watching days flash by in reverse. Adrian appeared frequently. I watched him come and go, sometimes carrying groceries, sometimes in exercise clothes, once with a stack of library books. Normal. Mundane. Then, about 2 weeks before his disappearance, things began to change. The footage showed Adrian starting to hesitate before leaving his apartment. He'd open his door, peer out carefully, check both directions multiple times before stepping into the hallway. His movements became jerky, anxious. 1 week before the disappearance, I watched him install the camera I was now viewing the footage from. He tested the angles multiple times, adjusting it to capture the maximum field of view. 3 days before the disappearance, the footage showed something that made my stomach clench. Adrian emerged from his apartment around midnight. He was wearing sleep clothes, drawstring pants, and an old t-shirt. But he was moving strangely, keeping close to the wall, looking over his shoulder every few steps. When he reached the corner where the hallway turned, he stopped abruptly. He stood there for almost 5 minutes, just staring at something off camera. Then he slowly backed away, returned to his apartment, and I watched him apply tape over his peephole from the inside. The tape was visible from the hallway camera, a white square over the small glass circle. The next footage was from the final night, the night he disappeared. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. Adrian's door burst open and he stumbled into the hallway. The camera caught him in profile, and even through the grainy footage, I could see that something was terribly wrong. His hands were bleeding. Not cut, but scraped raw, as if he'd been clawing at something. He was breathing hard, his chest heaving. He looked directly at the camera, looked at me, across time, and his mouth moved. The camera had no audio, but I could read his lips. I can't tell them apart anymore. Then he turned and ran down the hallway, out of frame. The timestamp continued, 11:48. 11:49, 11:50. At 11:51, the footage dissolved into static. Black and white noise filled the screen, punctuated by brief flashes of the hallway. The static continued for exactly 3 minutes. When the footage cleared at 11:54, the hallway was empty again. But something was wrong with the image. Something my brain registered before my conscious mind could identify it. I rewound and watched again, my face inches from the laptop screen. At 11:55, a figure entered the frame. It walked slowly, calmly, from the direction of the stairwell. It was wearing Adrian's clothes, the same drawstring pants and t-shirt. It had Adrian's build, Adrian's posture, Adrian's gait. The figure stopped directly in front of Adrian's door and turned to face the camera. Even through the grainy footage, even across the distance and poor lighting, I could see it clearly. It was Adrian's face. Adrian's exact face. But the expression was wrong. The smile was wrong. Too wide. Too knowing. It stood there, staring at the camera, for a full minute. Then it raised one hand slowly, deliberately, and waved. The footage cut to static again. When it cleared, the hallway was empty. The timestamp jumped forward to 12:03 a.m. Everything looked normal. No sign of Adrian. No sign of the figure. I sat back from my laptop, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. I watched the footage again. And again. Each time, the same sequence, Adrian stumbling out, bleeding, terrified. The static. The figure that looked exactly like Adrian, but wasn't. The wave. That wave. That terrible, knowing wave, like it was aware of the camera, aware it was being recorded, and didn't care. I can't tell them apart anymore. Tell who apart? Himself and what? I scrolled through the remaining footage. For the next several days, the hallway remained mostly empty. Mrs. Chen appeared once, knocking on Adrian's door. Other tenants passed by. Police arrived on day 4, the timestamp matching when I'd seen them force entry. But there, at the very edge of the frame, I caught glimpses of something. A shadow that seemed to linger just out of sight. A shape that appeared in one frame and vanished in the next. And just once, a figure standing at the far end of the hallway, barely visible in the darkness where the hallway light didn't quite reach. It was too far away to see clearly. But its posture was wrong. It stood too still, too perfectly motionless, in a way that human beings simply don't stand. And it was facing the camera. I checked the timestamp, 3 days after Adrian's disappearance. 2 days before I'd found the footprint outside my door. I exported all the footage to my hard drive, then sat in my darkening apartment as evening fell, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. My rational mind supplied explanations. The static was technical malfunction, the figure was Adrian himself in some kind of dissociative state, the shadow at the end of the hall was tricks of light and low resolution. But I didn't believe any of it. Because there was one more piece of footage I'd found, from just 2 days ago. The timestamp was 4:17 a.m., right around the time I'd been lying awake, listening to the scratching sounds from Adrian's apartment. The footage showed my own apartment door. The hallway was dark except for the emergency exit light's green glow. And there, standing directly in front of my door, was a figure. It was too dark to see clearly. Just a silhouette, human-shaped but somehow wrong. It stood there, perfectly still, for 14 minutes. Then it raised its hand and tested my door handle. Jiggle. Jiggle. The figure paused, as if listening. Then it slowly turned its head too far, at an angle that necks shouldn't bend, and looked directly at the camera. It was my face. My exact face, looking back at me through the camera, across time. And it was smiling. Even in the darkness, even through the poor quality footage, I could see its face. I should have stopped there. Should have taken the footage to the police, let them handle it, try to pretend I'd seen nothing more than security camera glitches and coincidence. Instead, I spent Monday planning how to get into Adrian's apartment. The police had finished their investigation. They'd taken samples of the blood, photographed the scene, and concluded, in the absence of a body or any real evidence of foul play, that Adrian had likely left voluntarily. The building insurance wanted the apartment cleaned and listed for rent. Mrs. Chen had mentioned she'd be arranging for a cleaning crew later in the week. Which meant I had a narrow window. Tuesday night, I waited until past midnight when the building fell into its deepest sleep. I'd borrowed a screwdriver from the maintenance closet. Mrs. Chen left it unlocked, trusting her tenants in a way that now seemed dangerously naive. The police tape across Adrian's door peeled away easily, leaving sticky residue on the doorframe. The lock took longer. I'm not proud of what I did, but desperation makes criminals of us all. 20 minutes of careful work with the screwdriver and a thin piece of metal cut from a soda can, and the lock clicked open. Adrian's apartment exhaled stale air into my face. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating a space that felt more like a crime scene than a home. The forensic team had taken what they needed, but they'd left chaos behind. Fingerprint powder dusted every surface. The overturned couch remained where it had fallen. And there, on the beige carpet, the dark stain that had started everything. It was larger than I'd remembered. A rough circle near the bathroom door, with drag marks leading inside. I forced myself to step over it, to not think about what it represented. The bathroom was worse. More stains in the tub, dark crescents under where the fingernails would have scraped. The shower curtain had been torn down, its hooks scattered across the tile floor. The mirror above the sink was cracked in a spiderweb pattern, as if something or someone had been slammed against it. I backed out of the bathroom, my breath coming quick and shallow. Focus. I was here for answers, not to traumatize myself with imagination. The living room yielded nothing useful. A few books on psychology and philosophy. A laptop that the police had taken and presumably returned. It sat on the desk, unplugged and closed. I didn't touch it. That felt like a bridge too far. The bedroom was neat, almost sterile. The bed was made with military precision. The closet held clothes organized by type and color. Nothing seemed out of place, which itself felt wrong. If there'd been a struggle, where were the signs? I was about to leave when my flashlight beam caught something odd about the bedroom floor. A section of the hardwood near the closet looked slightly uneven. I knelt down, running my fingers along the seam, and felt it give slightly. It took another 10 minutes to figure out how to lift the boards. When I finally did, my flashlight beam revealed a shallow space beneath and inside, for notebooks bound with rubber bands. Adrian's journals. I should have taken them and left immediately. But I couldn't help myself. I sat down right there on Adrian's bedroom floor and began to read. The first journal was dated from 8 months ago, shortly after Adrian had moved into the building. The entries were mundane at first: notes about work, observations about neighbors, complaints about the plumbing. Normal. Then, about 3 months in, the tone shifted. The woman in 4A isn't right. I can't explain it. She looks the same, sounds the same. But yesterday I held the door for her and she thanked me using my name. I've never told her my name. When I asked how she knew it, she just smiled and said she'd always known. There was something in that smile that made my skin crawl. A few weeks later. The couple in 3B are acting strange. They used to argue constantly. I could hear them through the walls. Now they're quiet. Too quiet. I saw them in the hallway yesterday and tried to make small talk. They both smiled at exactly the same time, in exactly the same way. Like synchronized puppets. I tested them, told them I'd seen their son recently. They don't have a son. They didn't correct me. Just kept smiling. The entries became more frantic. I'm documenting everyone. Their routines, their speech patterns, the small details that make them individuals. Because I think they're being replaced. I know how that sounds. I know I sound crazy. But I'm not. There are subtle differences. The way they move. The things they say. It's like someone is copying people but getting the details slightly wrong. He'd included photographs paper-clipped to the pages. Pictures of neighbors taken from his window or in the hallway. He'd annotated them with notes, voice pitched slightly higher than last week. Gait changed, used to favor left leg, doesn't anymore. Doesn't remember conversation we had 3 days ago. The second journal was darker. Adrian had started researching what he was experiencing. He'd written about Capgras delusion, the psychological condition where you believe loved ones have been replaced by imposters. He'd copied passages from psychology textbooks, underlined and annotated with his own notes. But it's not just loved ones. It's everyone. And I don't think I'm delusional. I think I'm seeing something real. Something that uses isolation against us. How well do we really know our neighbors? If someone was replaced, would we notice? Would we care? The third journal contained his attempts to prove what he was experiencing was real. He'd recorded audio clips. I found the USB drive labeled evidence taped inside the back cover. He'd documented physical changes he'd noticed, things that couldn't be explained by psychology. One entry chilled me to my core. I saw something in the parking garage. I was leaving for work and there was someone standing by my car. At first I thought it was my reflection in the car window. But I was standing 5 feet away. The reflection shouldn't have been there. Then it turned to look at me. It was me. Exact me. Same clothes, same face, same everything. And it smiled. Not the way I smile. I checked in the mirror later. It smiled too wide, like it was pulling on strings. We stood there looking at each other for what felt like hours but was probably just seconds. Then someone else drove into the garage and when I looked back, it was gone. But I found something on my car. A wet handprint on the driver's side window. When I touched it, my fingers came away dark. It smelled like rust and something else. Something organic and wrong. The final journal ended abruptly. The last entry was dated 3 days before his disappearance. The handwriting was barely legible, scrawled across the page in jagged lines. It's in the building. It's in the walls. I can hear it moving at night, crawling through spaces that shouldn't exist. I've been mapping the building's layout. The apartments don't add up, there's space missing. Gaps that don't appear on the floor plans. Something lives in those gaps. Something that watches us, studies us, learns us, and then it replaces us. Below that, in letters so large they took up half the page. IT saw me see it. Now it knows. And at the very bottom, written so small I had to squint to read it. Next, 2C. Started surveillance 2 weeks ago. Patterns established. Replacement imminent. 2C, my apartment. The journal slipped from my hands and hit the floor with a soft thud. Adrian had been watching me. Studying me. The same way he'd studied the others. Because he thought I was going to be replaced. Or because I already had been. I gathered the journals with shaking hands and stood up too fast, my head spinning. I needed to leave. Needed to get out of this apartment with its bloodstains and broken mirror and hidden spaces beneath the floor. But as I turned toward the door, my flashlight beam swept across the bedroom wall and I saw them. Scratch marks. Dozens of them, carved into the drywall beside the closet. Some shallow, some deep enough to reveal the wooden studs beneath. And words, scratched over and over. Help me, help me, help me. It took my place. It's living my life. Fresh marks. Recent. The drywall dust was still bright white, not yet dulled by time. These hadn't been here when the police investigated. I was certain of it. Which meant someone had made them after Adrian disappeared. Which meant someone had been in this apartment, scratching words into the walls while it was supposed to be sealed and empty. My flashlight flickered. Once. Twice. Then died completely, plunging me into absolute darkness. In that darkness, I heard it. A soft sound from somewhere very close. The sound of breathing that wasn't my own. And then, from the direction of the bathroom, a voice. Adrian's voice. Weak and desperate. Please. I'm still here. I'm still here. Don't let it. The voice cut off with a wet, choking sound. I ran. I made it back to my apartment, locked every lock, and collapsed against the door, Adrian's journals clutched to my chest. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely hold them. The journal slipped to the floor, pages splaying open, Adrian's frantic handwriting staring up at me in accusation. Next, to C. I'd been marked. Selected. Whatever had taken Adrian was coming for me next. For hours, I sat on my living room floor as dawnlight crept through the windows, trying to force my racing thoughts into something resembling logic. There had to be a rational explanation. Mass delusion. Carbon monoxide poisoning affecting the whole building. Shared psychosis. Something, anything except the impossible thing that Adrian's journals suggested. But I kept coming back to the footage. To the figure wearing Adrian's face. To my own face staring back at me through the security camera, smiling that wrong smile. And to that voice in Adrian's apartment, begging for help from somewhere that shouldn't contain a living person. As sunlight filled my apartment, bringing with it the mundane sounds of the building waking up, I made coffee and tried to pretend I was fine. Tried to pretend I was still the person who'd moved into this building 6 months ago, running from a life that had fallen apart. That's what I'd been doing, I realized. Running. I'd lost my job at the design firm when they downsized, last hired, first fired. My partner of 4 years had left me for someone who had their life together. My family had stopped calling after one too many ignored invitation, one too many I can't make it excuses. I'd moved to this anonymous building in this anonymous neighborhood specifically because I wanted to disappear into obscurity, to let the world forget about me while I licked my wounds. I'd gotten my wish, hadn't I? I'd become invisible. Isolated. The perfect target. Adrian had understood. I remembered now, with sudden clarity, one of the few real conversations we'd had. It was about a month after I'd moved in. We'd both been checking our mail at the same time, and he'd noticed my hands full of unread letters. Family, he'd asked, gesturing at the pile. Yeah. They keep trying. But you don't want them to? I'd shrugged, uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. Sometimes isolation protects us, you know? From more hurt. He'd looked at me then with an expression I couldn't quite read. Sadness? Pity? Fear? Maybe, he'd said quietly. But sometimes it makes us invisible. An invisible people. He'd trailed off, shaking his head. Never mind. Have a good day. I'd thought he was just being weird. Now I understood. He'd been trying to warn me. My phone buzzed a text from my sister. The fifth this week that I hadn't answered. Just checking in. Please let me know you're okay? I stared at the message for a long time. When had I last spoken to her? Really spoken, not just sent a brief text saying I was fine? 3 months? 4? Would she notice if I disappeared? Or would she just assume I was still ignoring her, still hiding in my self-imposed exile? The thought made me feel sick. I looked around my apartment with new eyes. The bare walls, I'd never bothered hanging pictures. The minimal furniture, nothing personal, nothing that spoke of who I was. The blinds I kept mostly closed. It wasn't a home. It was a hiding place. A cocoon. A tomb. I'd made myself a ghost before anything supernatural ever got involved. My phone buzzed again. My sister. I'm worried about you. I started to type a response, then stopped. What would I say? That I was fine? That I'd call her later? More of the same lies I'd been telling? Instead, I looked up, staring at my reflection in the dark TV screen across the room. Or I tried to. The reflection was there, but something about it felt wrong. I stood up, moving closer to the screen, studying the murky image of myself reflected in the black glass. It moved when I moved. Mimicked my gestures. But there was something in the timing, the slightest delay, like watching a video with the audio slightly out of sync. I stepped back. The reflection stepped back. I raised my hand. The reflection raised its hand. But when I smiled tentatively, testing, the reflection smiled a fraction of a second too late. My heart began to pound. I walked quickly to the bathroom, flicking on the harsh overhead light. The mirror above the sink reflected back the same face I'd seen every day for 32 years. Tired eyes. Unwashed hair pulled into a messy knot. Pale skin from too much time indoors. I leaned closer, studying every detail. Everything looked normal. Everything looked right. Then I did something I can't fully explain. Some instinct, some deep-buried survival mechanism. I looked away from the mirror, turned my head to the right, but kept my eyes on the reflection in my peripheral vision. The reflection didn't turn its head. For just a fraction of a second, so brief I almost missed it, my reflection continued staring straight ahead while I was looking away. Then it caught up. Continue. 9:19 a.m. Turned its head to match mine, and everything was synchronized again. I backed away from the mirror so fast I hit the towel rack. My reflection backed away too, perfectly timed now, looking appropriately startled. But I'd seen it. That moment of disconnect. That proof that the face in the mirror wasn't quite doing what I was doing. I thought of Adrian's journal. I can't tell them apart anymore. Tell what apart? Himself and his reflection? Or himself and something pretending to be his reflection? I spent the rest of the day avoiding mirrors. Avoiding reflective surfaces. I covered my TV screen with a blanket. Kept the bathroom light off. Even turned my phone face down so I wouldn't catch an accidental glimpse in its black screen. But I couldn't avoid the feeling that I was being watched. That presence, that sensation of invisible eyes, had grown stronger. It seemed to press against me from all directions, as if the walls themselves were observing. As evening fell, I finally responded to my sister, "I'm okay. Can I call you tomorrow? I need to tell you something." Her response came immediately, "Of course. I love you. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out." I stared at those words for a long time. We'll figure it out. When had I stopped believing that anyone would help me figure things out? When had I started believing I had to handle everything alone? That night, I forced myself to look in the bathroom mirror one more time. I'd been avoiding it for hours, but I needed to know. Needed to confirm what I'd seen earlier. The fluorescent light hummed to life. My reflection appeared in the mirror, looking back at me with exhausted, frightened eyes. I watched it carefully. This time, I didn't look away. I stood perfectly still, barely breathing, studying every micro-movement. And I saw it. So subtle that anyone not looking for it would miss it entirely. My chest rose and fell with my breathing. But my reflection's chest moved slightly differently. The rhythm was off by just a fraction, like two metronomes that had started together but were slowly falling out of sync. We stood there, me and my reflection, breathing at slightly different rates. Then, and this is the part that still haunts me, my reflection's eyes shifted. Just slightly. Just enough. Instead of looking at my eyes, it was looking at something behind me. I spun around. Nothing there. Just my empty bathroom, the shower curtain open, the space clearly vacant. When I turned back to the mirror, my reflection was looking at me again, eyes properly aligned. But it was smiling now. Not the frightened expression I knew I was wearing. It was smiling that smile. The smile from the security footage. Too wide. Too knowing. I backed out of the bathroom and slammed the door. That night, I slept with every light in my apartment blazing. And when the scratching sounds started from Adrian's apartment above me at 4 a.m., I didn't just hear them. I heard them in stereo. Scratch, scratch, scratch from above. And scratch, scratch, scratch from inside my own walls. Wednesday morning, I saw myself. Not in a mirror. Not in a reflection. In the parking garage, standing next to my car. I'd spent a sleepless night listening to those sounds in the walls, trying to convince myself they were rats or pipes or anything normal. By 7 a.m., I'd given up on sleep entirely. I needed to get out of the building, go somewhere public, somewhere with people and noise and witnesses. The parking garage was in the basement, accessed through a stairwell that always smelled faintly of mildew and exhaust. My car was parked in its usual spot, third row back, under a flickering fluorescent tube that maintenance never bothered to fix. I was halfway down the row when I saw the figure standing by my driver's side door. For a moment, one absurd, desperate moment, I thought it might be someone else. A neighbor. A stranger. Anyone. Then it turned to look at me. It was wearing my clothes. The same jeans I'd put on that morning. The same gray hoodie. The same worn sneakers. Every detail was perfect, down to the small coffee stain on my left cuff that I'd gotten 3 days ago. We stood there, maybe 20 feet apart, staring at each other. The fluorescent light flickered, casting stuttering shadows across its face, my face. The resemblance was absolute. Every line, every feature, every imperfection. The small scar above my right eyebrow from a childhood fall. The uneven way my hair fell across my forehead. The exact shade of my eyes. But the expression was wrong. I wasn't smiling. I was terrified, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. But the thing wearing my face was smiling. That smile. The same smile I'd seen in the mirror. "You're not real," I said, my voice cracking. The thing tilted its head, my head, at an angle that somehow looked wrong on my own features. When it spoke, it used my voice, my exact voice, but with a flat quality that made my skin crawl. "Neither are you. Not anymore." I took a step backward. It took a step forward, perfectly mirroring my movement. Some kind of absurd dance, two identical figures in a concrete tomb. "What do you want?" "What's already mine?" It gestured around the garage, at the building above us. "Your place. Your life. Such as it is." The contempt in those last words, in my own voice, made something inside me snap. "This is insane. You're not real. You're a hallucination. I'm having a breakdown." "Are you?" It smiled wider. Adrian thought the same thing. Until he didn't. Where is Adrian? Replaced. Improved. He's better now. More consistent. More predictable. Less. It paused, as if searching for the word. Less trouble. I was shaking now, my whole body trembling. "I'll call the police. I'll tell everyone." "Tell them what?" It laughed, and hearing my own laugh twisted into something alien made me want to scream. "That you saw yourself? That you've been stealing security footage and breaking into sealed apartments? That you're accusing your own reflection of replacing you? They'll think you're crazy. Maybe you are crazy. How would you know?" It was right. The worst part was, it was right. Who would believe me? I had no proof, nothing concrete, just impossible claims and surveillance footage that could be explained away as glitches and tricks of light. "I'll figure something out," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "No, you won't." The thing's smile faded, replaced by something colder. "You're already gone. You've been disappearing for months. Nobody calls anymore. Nobody visits. Nobody would notice if you vanished completely. That's why you're perfect. That's why he was perfect. The isolated ones. The forgotten ones. We take your place, and the world just keeps spinning." The truth of its words hit me like a physical blow. I had made myself disappear. I had pruned away every connection, every relationship, every thread that tied me to the world. I'd thought I was protecting myself. I'd been making myself vulnerable. "I'll reconnect," I said desperately. "I'll call my sister. I'll talk to neighbors. I'll make them remember me." The thing's expression didn't change. "Will you? Or will I? Because right now, standing here, who's to say which one of us is real? Which one of us gets to walk away?" It stepped closer. Another step. Close enough now that I could see my own face in perfect, terrible detail. close enough to notice that it didn't quite blink at the right intervals, that its chest didn't rise and fall with breathing, that its eyes were just slightly too bright, too focused, like a predator's. "I could take you right now," it whispered. "Pull you into the spaces between. Let you scratch at walls that nobody hears. Let you whisper for help that never comes. Let you fade until you're not even sure you were ever real at all." I wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at me to turn and flee. But I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. This was it. This was how Adrian felt in his final moments, facing something wearing his own skin. Then the garage door burst open, and Mrs. Chen's voice echoed across the concrete. "Hello? Is someone down here? The lights keep flickering." The thing stepped back quickly, smoothly. It raised one hand, my hand, and pressed one finger to its lips in a silencing gesture. Then it backed into the shadow behind my car and vanished. Not walked away. Vanished. There one moment, gone the next, as if it had never been there at all. Mrs. Chen appeared around the corner, squinting in the bad light. "Oh. It's you. I thought I heard voices." Just me," I managed. "Talking to myself." She looked at me strangely, but nodded. "This garage is creepy. All these shadows. I keep thinking I see things." She paused, studying my face. "Are you all right? You look unwell." "I'm fine," I lied. "Just tired." After she left, I checked my car thoroughly. Nothing seemed disturbed. But on the driver's side window, I found something that made my blood run cold: a handprint. My own handprint, judging by the size and shape. But when I held my hand up to compare, my fingers didn't match the span. The handprint was slightly larger. As if whatever left it was almost, but not quite, the exact same size as me. I didn't take my car. Didn't trust it anymore. Instead, I walked back up to my apartment, checking over my shoulder every few steps. That's when I noticed my keys were missing. I distinctly remembered putting them in my right pocket. They were gone. I found them an hour later, slipped under my apartment door while I was inside. A note came with them, written in my own handwriting. "You don't belong here anymore." That night, I heard my own voice calling my name from Adrian's apartment. Soft at first, then growing louder, more insistent, more desperate. And I realized the worst part: I was starting to doubt myself. Starting to wonder if maybe I was the one who wasn't real. If maybe I was the copy, the replacement, the thing that didn't quite belong. After all, how would I know? I stopped sleeping entirely. How could I sleep when every time I closed my eyes, I heard my own voice calling from the walls? When I couldn't trust my own reflection, my own thoughts, my own memories? Thursday. Friday. Saturday. The days blurred together into one long, fluorescent-lit nightmare. I documented everything, just like Adrian had done. I wrote down every thought, every observation, trying to prove to myself that I was real, that I was still here, still me. But the evidence mounted against my own sanity. I saw myself twice more. Once in the lobby, speaking with Mrs. Chen while I watched from the stairwell. I heard my own voice, my own laugh, discussing maintenance issues and package deliveries. Mrs. Chin seemed completely comfortable, completely normal, as if nothing was wrong with the person she was talking to. The second time was worse. I was looking out my window late Friday night and saw myself standing on the sidewalk across the street, looking up at my apartment. We made eye contact, I'm sure of it, and the thing on the sidewalk waved. The same wave from the security footage. Slow. Deliberate. Knowing. I stopped answering my phone because I couldn't trust the voices anymore. My sister called 6 times. I listened to her voicemails, trying to hear something in her tone that would tell me if it was really her or something pretending to be her. "I'm worried about you," she said in the last message. "You said you'd call and you didn't. Please, just let me know you're okay. Or tell me you're not okay. Either way, I'm here." Was that really her? Or was it something that had learned her voice, her speech patterns, her concern? I couldn't tell anymore. The other neighbors started avoiding me. I could see it in how they hurried past in the hallway, how they checked their mail at different times, how they stopped making eye contact. Was it because I looked unwell, unwashed, sleep-deprived, paranoid? Or was it because something was telling them to stay away from me? On Saturday afternoon, I finally did what Adrian had done. I covered all my mirrors. Draped towels over the bathroom mirror, unplugged the TV, turned every reflective surface to face the wall. If I couldn't see my reflection, it couldn't watch me. Couldn't smile that wrong smile. But I could still feel it. That presence, pressing against me from all sides. The walls seemed thinner now. Sometimes I thought I could hear movement inside them, soft shuffling sounds, like something crawling through narrow spaces. The scratching continued every night. No longer just from Adrian's apartment, but from inside my own walls. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Moving through the building's hidden spaces, the gaps that didn't appear on floor plans, the architectural impossibilities that Adrian had tried to map. I pulled out his journals again, studied his notes with desperate focus. He'd drawn diagrams of the building, measurements that didn't add up. Between the apartments, he'd calculated, there should be 6 inches of space, party walls, insulation, studs. But his measurements suggested nearly 3 feet of empty space between some units. Space for something to live. To move. To watch. I started testing my own apartment's dimensions. From wall to wall, pacing it out, comparing it to the building's floor plan that Mrs. Chin kept in the office. Adrian was right. The space didn't match. There was at least 2 feet of missing space on the east wall, the wall that backed up against the stairwell. Or what I thought was just the stairwell. Sunday morning at 3 a.m., I was lying on my floor with my ear pressed against that east wall, listening. I could hear the scratching, closer now, accompanied by other sounds. Breathing. Whispers. Movement. And then, clear as day, I heard my own voice. "Let me in. I'm so cold out here. Please let me in." I scrambled away from the wall, my heart hammering. The voice continued, muffled but distinct. "I'm the real one. You're the copy. You know you are. You feel wrong, don't you? Out of place? That's because you don't belong. Let me back in. Let me have my life back." "Stop it," I whispered. "Stop it, stop it, stop it." You're fading, my voice said from inside the wall. Can you feel it? You're becoming less real every day. Soon you'll be in here with me, scratching at walls nobody hears, whispering to nobody who listens. We're already so much alike, you and I. Both isolated. Both forgotten. Both invisible. I pressed my hands over my ears, but I could still hear it. Could still hear my own voice listing every failure, every mistake, every reason why nobody would miss me if I disappeared. And the worst part? It was right. About all of it. Monday morning, I looked in the mirror. I needed to confirm I still had a reflection, and barely recognized what I saw. My face was gaunt, eyes hollow, skin pale as paper. I looked like a ghost. Like something already half erased from existence. When I reached up to touch my face, my reflection reached up too. But our hands didn't quite align. My fingers touched my cheek a full second before my reflection's fingers did. The desynchronization was getting worse. I tried to leave my apartment. Made it as far as the hallway before I saw myself standing at the far end, near the stairwell door. We stared at each other for a long moment. Then it smiled and stepped sideways, not into the stairwell, but into the wall itself. I watched, paralyzed, as my own body merged with the wallpaper and disappeared, leaving only a faint smudge where it had been. I returned to my apartment and locked the door. That afternoon, I broke. Completely, utterly broke. I destroyed the cupboard mirrors, punched the walls, screamed at the ceiling. I demanded answers from the empty air. I begged for it to be over. What do you want? I shouted. What do you want from me? The scratching stopped. The whispers ceased. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, from every direction at once, from the walls, from the ceiling, from beneath the floor, I heard my own voice, speaking in perfect unison. Everything. I collapsed on my couch, pulling my knees to my chest, rocking back and forth. This was it. This was how Adrian had felt. This was the unraveling, the descent into a madness that wasn't actually madness because the impossible things were real. My phone buzzed. Through my tears, I saw a message from my sister. I'm coming over tomorrow. Don't try to stop me. I love you. Tomorrow. She was coming tomorrow. Would she find me? Or would she find something wearing my face, perfectly mimicking my mannerisms, telling her everything was fine? Would she be able to tell the difference? Would I? As darkness fell and the building settled into its nightly routine, I sat in my apartment and tried to remember who I was. Tried to catalog the things that made me real, made me me. But every memory felt suspect now. Every thought felt like it might belong to something else. The boundaries of my identity had blurred, leaving me uncertain where I ended and the thing pretending to be me began. At midnight, I heard Adrian's voice, his real voice, weak and desperate, coming from inside my east wall. Don't give up. Please don't give up. If you give up, you become like us. Forgotten. Erased. Not even sure we were ever real. How do I fight it? I whispered to the wall. You remember, Adrian said. You make them remember you. You refuse to be invisible. That's the only way. That's. His voice cut off abruptly, replaced by the sound of something dragging him deeper into the walls. And I understood. Finally, terribly, I understood. The thing didn't just want to replace me. It wanted me to erase myself. To give up. To accept that I was already gone. But I was still here. Still real. Still fighting. I just had to find a way to prove it. I stopped running at dawn. All night, I'd listened to Adrian's voice fading into the walls, his words echoing in my mind. You remember. You make them remember you. But first, I needed to understand what I was fighting. The sun rose on Tuesday morning, painting my apartment in shades of gray and gold. I'd spent hours studying Adrian's diagrams, his measurements, his observations about the building's impossible geometry. There was a pattern here, a logic to the spaces that shouldn't exist. And I thought I knew how to find it. I gathered tools from my kitchen, a hammer, a screwdriver, my measuring tape. If there were hidden spaces between the walls, there had to be access points. Ways in and out. Adrian had been dragged into those spaces, which meant there were openings. I started with the east wall of my bedroom, the wall where I'd heard the voices most clearly. I measured it against the floor plan Mrs. Chen had let me photograph weeks ago when I'd first moved in. The floor plan showed this wall should be 6 inches thick, drywall, studs, insulation, more drywall. But when I tapped along the wall with my knuckles, the sound changed at certain points. Most of it sounded solid, the dull thud of hitting studs. But near the corner, close to where the bedroom met the bathroom, there was a hollow sound. A void. I pressed my ear against that spot and heard it, breathing. Faint but distinct. And beneath that, a soft scratching sound. My hands shook as I used the screwdriver to pry away the baseboards. Behind them, the drywall looked normal, white, slightly textured, perfectly ordinary. But when I tapped it with the hammer, the hollow sound was undeniable. I hesitated only a moment before I swung the hammer. The drywall cracked, pieces falling inward into darkness beyond. I cleared away more of the wall, creating a hole about 2 feet wide. Behind the wall was a gap. Not 6 inches. Not even 2 feet. It was at least 3 feet wide and extended in both directions, a narrow corridor running parallel to the apartment walls. I shone my phone's flashlight into the space. The beam illuminated rough wooden studs, exposed insulation, and running along what should have been the exterior wall, deep scratch marks. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. Carved into the wood by fingernails, by desperate hands. And there was more. Evidence of habitation. Old food wrappers. Empty water bottles, their labels faded. Stains on the floor that might have been blood. And scratched into every available surface, messages. Help me. Still here. Can't remember my name. How long? Please. The messages were carved in different handwriting styles. Different people. How many had been taken? How many were still in here, lost in the spaces between, slowly forgetting who they were? I lowered myself through the hole, my feet finding purchase on the wooden joists below. The space was barely wide enough for me to move, my shoulders brushing both walls. The air was stale, thick with dust and something else, that same organic, wrong smell I'd noticed in the parking garage. I moved slowly, following the corridor. It extended past my apartment, into the spaces behind other units. Above me, I could hear the normal sounds of the building: footsteps, running water, muffled conversations. Life continuing as normal while I crawled through the building's hidden veins. The scratch marks grew more frantic as I progressed. Some of them were so deep they'd gone through the drywall entirely, small punctures that would let whoever was trapped in here see into the apartments. Spy holes. Ways to watch, to study, to learn the people they would replace. I found Adrian's phone about 20 feet from where I'd entered. It was lying on a joist, its screen cracked but still functional. When I turned it on, it showed 3% battery remaining. The last app open was the camera. With trembling fingers, I opened the video gallery. The most recent video was dated the night Adrian disappeared. I pressed play. The footage was dark, barely lit by the phone screen. I could hear heavy breathing, Adrian's breathing. The camera was pointed down a section of the crawlspace, showing wooden beams in shadow. "I don't know if anyone will find this," Adrian's voice said, tight with terror. "I think I understand now. The building, it's not just a building. It's like an ecosystem. We're all living in the visible parts, but there's this whole other layer underneath. Behind. In between. And something lives there. Studies us through the walls. Learns us." The camera shifted, and I saw a glimpse of Adrian's face in the screen's reflection. He looked terrified. I saw it tonight. My replacement. It came to my door and knocked, and when I looked through the peephole, I saw myself standing in the hallway. But I was in my apartment. I was right there, looking out. So what was in the hallway? His breathing got faster. I tried to run. Made it to the bathroom. But it followed me. It came through the walls. I watched the drywall crack and split and something pushed through, something that looked exactly like me. And it said. The video went to static. When it cleared, the camera had fallen or been dropped. It showed the floor of the crawlspace at an angle. In the distance, I could see two figures struggling. One was Adrian. The other was also Adrian. They were identical. Same build, same clothes, same face. I couldn't tell them apart. "Let me go," one of them said. "I am," the other replied in the exact same voice. "I'm letting you go into the quiet. Into the spaces where no one will find you. You'll be comfortable here. Forgotten. Isn't that what you wanted?" "No, please, I'll be better, I'll connect, I'll." "Too late. You're already gone. No one will miss you. No one will even notice." The struggle continued for another moment, then stopped. One of the Adrians, I couldn't tell which, grabbed the phone. He stared directly into the camera with eyes that reflected the screen's light like an animal's. "If you're watching this," he said in Adrian's voice but with that flat, wrong quality, "then you're next. And you're already in here with us, aren't you? Already crawling through spaces you shouldn't be. Already doubting which one is real, you or your reflection." He smiled that smile. "Welcome home." The video ended. I stood there in the crawlspace, phone clutched in my shaking hand, trying to process what I'd seen. Adrian hadn't been killed. He'd been replaced. dragged into these spaces and left to fade while something else took his place in the world above. A sound made me freeze. Footsteps. Not from the apartments, but from within the crawlspace itself. Coming toward me from deeper in the building. I started backing toward my apartment, my heart hammering. The footsteps got closer, accompanied by that flat, familiar voice. You shouldn't be in here. This is where we live. Where we watch. Where we wait. I moved faster, my phone's light bouncing wildly. Behind me, I could see my apartment's opening, the hole I'd made in the drywall. You're making this harder than it needs to be, the voice continued. My voice. Just accept it. You're already gone. Already forgotten. Why keep fighting? I reached the opening and pulled myself through, scrambling back into my bedroom. I grabbed the hammer and held it like a weapon, pointing it at the hole. Something moved in the darkness beyond. A face emerged into my phone's light. It was my face. Perfect in every detail. But the eyes were wrong, too bright, too focused, reflecting light like mirrors. Tomorrow your sister comes, it said. I'll meet her. I'll convince her everything is fine. I'm very good at being you. Better than you are, actually. More consistent. More reliable. She'll be relieved that you've gotten it together. She'll know, I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it. She'll be able to tell. Will she? The thing wearing my face tilted its head. Have you talked to her in months? Do you think she remembers the little details that make you you? Or does she just remember a general outline, a sister-shaped void that I can fill perfectly? Before I could respond, it retreated into the darkness. Its voice echoed back. Adrian is still in here, you know. In the spaces. Still scratching, still whispering, still slowly forgetting his own name. Would you like to join him? Or would you prefer I just take your place quietly? I boarded up the hole with furniture and books, piling everything I could against the wall. It wouldn't stop the thing, I knew. But maybe it would slow it down. As I worked, I heard other voices from inside the walls. A woman. An older man. A young person whose age was impossible to determine. All whispering their own names, over and over, as if trying to remember who they were. And beneath it all, I heard Adrian, don't let it win. Please. Don't let it. His voice dissolved into static, into nothingness. I had until tomorrow morning. Until my sister arrived. Until the thing wearing my face tried to take my place for good. I had to figure out how to stop it. But first, I had to figure out which one of us was real. My phone rang at 7 a.m. Tuesday morning. I stared at the screen, Lily, sister. But I'd just gotten a text from Lily 5 minutes ago saying she was leaving her house and would arrive around 9. She wouldn't be calling. I let it go to voicemail. After a moment, I listened to the message. Hey, it's me. I'm running late, car trouble. Won't be there until afternoon now. Sorry. Call me back? It was Lily's voice. Her exact voice, down to the slight rasp she got in the mornings. But it was wrong. The inflection was off. The words came too smoothly, without her usual hesitation or verbal tics. I checked my texts again. The message from 5 minutes ago had vanished. In its place was a new text: "Car won't start. Coming this afternoon instead. So sorry." The messages were changing. Reality was shifting around me, rewriting itself. Or I was losing my mind. I couldn't tell anymore, and that uncertainty was the worst part. The thing had been right, doubt was its weapon. Make me question everything, question my own memories and perceptions, until I no longer knew what was real. But I did know one thing: my sister was in danger. Whether she arrived this morning or this afternoon, when she got here, she'd find something waiting for her. Something wearing my face, speaking with my voice, telling her everything was fine. I had to stop it. Had to warn her, protect her, prove to her that I was real. But how do you prove you're real? I looked at the boarded-up hole in my bedroom wall. Behind those books and furniture, beyond that broken drywall, were the spaces where Adrian and others were slowly dissolving into nothingness. That's what the thing wanted for me. Not death, but something worse: erasure. To be forgotten so completely that I might as well have never existed. My phone rang again. This time I answered. "Hello?" "Hello," my own voice said back. "We need to talk." "What do you want?" "I want to make you an offer. A deal." My voice, sounded almost reasonable. "You leave. Quietly. Tonight. You pack a bag, walk out the door, and keep walking. Go anywhere. Start over somewhere new. I won't stop you. And if I don't? Then I take it by force. Your sister arrives, and she finds what the police found in Adrian's apartment. A mess. Evidence of violence. And eventually, me grieving, traumatized, but very much alive. The real you? You'll be in the walls. Scratching. Whispering. Fading. I felt cold. Why offer me a choice at all? Because willing replacements work better. When someone gives up, when they accept that they're already gone, the transition is cleaner. Less resistance. Adrian fought, and look where it got him. A pause. You felt it, haven't you? That sense of being out of place? Of not quite fitting in your own life? That's because you've been disappearing for months. I'm just helping you finish what you started. The terrible thing was, I understood what it meant. I had been disappearing, isolating myself, cutting connections, making myself invisible. I'd been halfway to gone before the thing ever showed up. You prey on lonely people, I said. We prey on people who are already prey. Who've made themselves vulnerable. Who've isolated themselves so completely that their absence barely registers. You think anyone will miss you? Your job fired you. Your partner left you. Your family stopped calling. You did this to yourself. My sister didn't stop calling. She kept trying. One person. One thread connecting you to the world. That's not enough. That's barely anything. And after I meet her today, after I convince her I'm fine, that thread will break too. She'll stop worrying. Stop trying. And you'll be completely gone. I thought about Lily's messages, her voicemails, her persistence despite my silence. One thread. Was that really all I had left? You're wrong, I said, trying to sound confident. She'll know you're not me. Will she? The voice took on a mocking tone. When did you last have a real conversation with her? When did you last tell her about your life, your feelings, your thoughts? She doesn't know you anymore. She knows a memory of you. A general outline. I can fill that outline perfectly. My hand tightened on the phone. I'll expose you. I'll tell everyone. Tell them what? Show them what? You have no proof. Just the ravings of someone who's clearly having a breakdown. That's what they'll see. That's what they'll remember. Not you, just a cautionary tale about isolation and mental illness. The thing was right, and it knew it. I had nothing concrete. Nothing that would convince anyone. Just impossible claims and paranoid theories and evidence that could be explained away. So what's it going to be? My voice asked. Walk away tonight, or fight a battle you can't win? I thought about Adrian, scratching at walls that no one would tear down. I thought about the others in the spaces between, slowly forgetting their own names. I thought about becoming one of them, trapped in darkness, whispering for help that would never come. But I also thought about Lily. About the sister who kept calling despite my silence. Who said, "We'll figure it out," like it was a promise. Who was coming today to check on me even though I'd given her every reason to give up. I'd isolated myself. Made myself vulnerable. But I wasn't completely gone. Not yet. No, I said. No? No deal. I'm not leaving. This is my life. My apartment. My face. You can't have it. Silence on the other end. Then, you're making a mistake. Maybe. But it's my mistake to make. I'm still real. Still here. And I'm going to fight. Adrian fought too. I'm not Adrian. I have something he didn't. What's that? Someone who's coming to find me. Someone who won't stop looking. You can replace me, but you can't replace what I mean to her. She'll know. Somehow, she'll know. Another silence. When my voice spoke again, it was colder. Then I'll have to make sure she doesn't get the chance to figure it out. The line went dead. I stood there, phone clutched in my shaking hand, realizing what I'd just done. I'd declared war on something I didn't fully understand. Something that had successfully replaced others before me. Something that could move through walls and wear faces and make reality doubt itself. But I'd also made a choice. To stop disappearing. To stop giving up. To fight for my own existence even if I wasn't sure I could win. I looked at the clock. 9:25 a.m. 7:23 a.m. Lily would arrive in less than 2 hours if the original timeline held. Maybe less if the thing was manipulating time, messages, reality itself. I needed a plan. Needed some way to prove to Lily that I was real and the thing was not. But how? The answer came from Adrian's journals, still sitting on my coffee table. I flipped through them, looking for his notes on how the replacements worked. He'd written, "They're perfect mimics of appearance and basic behavior. But they can't perfectly replicate deep memories, shared experiences, the tiny details that make us individuals. They learn from observation, but observation has limits. Deep memories, shared experiences, things only Lily and I would know." I grabbed a notebook and started writing. Every detail I could remember about our childhood, our relationship, our shared history. Inside jokes. Secret codes. The name of her first pet. The scar on my knee from when we built a fort in the woods. The song we made up when we were kids. Every tiny, specific thing that the thing couldn't possibly know from watching through walls. As I wrote, I heard movement in my walls. Scratching. Shuffling. The thing was preparing too. The final battle for my identity was coming. And I had no idea if I could win. Lily arrived at 8:47 a.m. I watched from my window as she parked on the street, checked her phone, and got out of her car. My heart hammered as she disappeared from view, heading toward the building's entrance. I'd spent the last hour preparing. The apartment was lit with every lamp I owned. I positioned myself where I could see both the front door and my reflection in the window. I needed to keep track of both. And I had my notebook ready, filled with memories only the real me would know. The knock came exactly 90 seconds after she'd entered the building, time for her to climb to the second floor, find my door, hesitate for just a moment like she always did before important conversations. I opened the door. Lily stood in the hallway, her expression a mixture of relief and concern. She looked exactly as I remembered, curly dark hair pulled back, freckles across her nose, wearing her favorite worn jean jacket. Behind her, the hallway was empty. No sign of the thing. "Hey," she said softly. "Can I come in?" I stepped back, letting her enter. She hugged me immediately, and I felt myself start to cry. Her familiar smell of vanilla and coffee, her solid presence. Real. She was real. "I've been so worried," she said, pulling back to study my face. "You look exhausted. Are you sleeping?" "Not much." I gestured to the couch. "Lily, I need to tell you something. And I need you to believe me even though it sounds impossible." She sat down, her concern deepening. "Okay. I'm listening." I opened my mouth to explain about Adrian, about the thing, about the spaces between walls, when I heard it. A knock at the door. We both froze. "Expecting someone?" Lily asked. I shook my head, my mouth dry. Another knock, more insistent. Then a voice from the hallway. "Lily? Are you in there?" My voice. Coming from the hallway. Lily's eyes widened. "What?" "Don't open it," I said quickly. "Please. Don't open it." But she was already standing, moving toward the door. "That sounded like you." "Is someone?" "It's not me." I grabbed her arm. "I'm right here. That thing in the hallway isn't me." She stared at me, confusion and fear mixing in her expression. "You're scaring me." The voice came again, "Lily, please. She's not well." She's having some kind of episode. Let me in. I'm not having an episode, I said desperately. That thing out there, it's been trying to replace me. It looks like me, sounds like me, but it's not. This is exactly what it would say, the voice interrupted from the hallway. It'll tell you I'm not real. That there's some conspiracy. Some impossible thing happening. But there's a simple explanation. I'm having a breakdown. I need help. Lily looked between me and the door, uncertain. I could see her trying to rationalize what was happening, trying to find a logical explanation. Ask it something, I said quickly. Something only I would know. A memory we share. Anyone could have memories, the voice said through the door. Photos, social media, overheard conversations. Lily, please. I'm scared. I need you. The pleading tone was perfect. Exactly how I would sound if I was genuinely frightened. The thing had learned me so well. What was the name of our fort? I asked loudly, toward the door. The one we built in the woods behind grandmother's house? Silence. Then, Castle Moonlight. We named it on a night with a full moon. Lily's expression shifted. That's right. No, I said. That's what we called it later. But the first name, the secret name we never told anyone, what was it? Another pause. Longer this time. Fort. Fort nothing special, the voice said. Because we wanted it to sound boring so other kids wouldn't want to come. Lily's eyes widened. How did you? It's guessing, I said. Based on the kind of things kids do. But that's not right. Is it, Lily? My sister's face had gone pale. The first name was Invisible Kingdom. Because we wanted to disappear there. Be invisible to the adult world. She looked at me. How would it know to guess wrong unless it's been watching? Learning. But it can't know everything. It can't know what happened in our private moments. What we shared when no one else was there. The door rattled violently. Let me in. Let me in. Let me in. The voice had lost its careful modulation. It was rising, growing louder, multiple voices speaking in unison, my voice repeated and layered until it no longer sounded human. What is that? Lily whispered. It's what's been trying to replace me. What replaced our neighbor Adrian? What's been living in the walls, studying us, learning us, waiting to take our places? I grabbed my notebook. I wrote down everything I could remember. Things only you and I know. Test me. Prove to yourself which one of us is real. Lily took the notebook with shaking hands. The door continued to rattle, and now I could hear scratching fingernails dragging down the wood. What did I give you for your 16th birthday? Lily asked. A journal with a purple cover. You'd written the first page, to my sister, write your truth, even when it's hard. What happened the night Mom went to the hospital? We slept in the waiting room. You held my hand all night. In the morning, you bought me hot chocolate from the vending machine and it was terrible, but I drank it anyway because you were trying so hard to make things okay. What did we promise each other after the funeral? That we'd never let each other disappear. That would always be there, always answer, always show up. Even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. Tears were streaming down Lily's face. I thought you'd forgotten. When you stopped answering. When you pulled away. I didn't forget. I got lost. Started disappearing anyway. And that thing out there, it feeds on people like me. People who've isolated themselves. Made themselves vulnerable. I took her hands. But I'm not completely gone. Because you kept calling. Kept trying. One thread connecting me to the world. And that thread is real. More real than anything that thing can imitate. The scratching at the door grew frantic. My voice, was shouting now, no longer trying to sound human. She's lying. She's the copy. I'm real. I'm real. Let me in. Let me in. How do we stop it? Lily asked. I don't know. But Adrian tried to fight it alone. Tried to document everything, prove everything, and he lost because there was no one to believe him. No one to witness that he was real. I squeezed her hands. You believe me. You see me. As long as someone remembers me, really remembers me, not just a vague outline, then I exist. I'm real. The thing can't take that away. The door splintered. Not from the lock, but from the middle, as if something was pushing through the wood itself. Cracks spread across its surface like a spider web. We need to leave, Lily said. Now. We ran for the window. My apartment was on the second floor, low enough to jump if necessary. But when I looked out, I saw more of them. Dozens of figures, all wearing my face, standing in the street below. All staring up. All smiling that wrong smile. The stairs, I said, pulling Lily toward my apartment door. But the door was no longer splintering. It was dissolving. The wood seemed to melt away, revealing the hallway beyond, and standing there, multiple versions of me. 3, 4, 5 of them, all identical, all wrong. You can't leave, they said in unison. You're already gone. Already forgotten. Already. No, Lily said loudly, stepping in front of me. I see her. I know her. She's my sister and she's real and you can't have her. The thing stopped. For the first time, they seemed uncertain. You can only take people no one will miss, Lily continued, her voice gaining strength. People who've isolated themselves. Made themselves invisible. But she's not invisible to me. She never was. Even when she was hiding, even when she wasn't answering, I knew she was there. I remembered her. And I came to find her. The figures flickered, like bad TV reception. Their forms wavered, becoming less solid. She exists because I witness her existence, Lily said. And you're nothing. Reflections without source. Copies without originals. You need us to forget ourselves before you can take our places. But we remember. The things began to dissolve, their features melting, their bodies collapsing in on themselves. As they faded, I heard other voices, Adrian's voice, and others, crying out in relief or despair, I couldn't tell which. When the hallway cleared, it was empty. Normal. The fluorescent lights hummed their usual drone. Somewhere, a neighbor's TV played a game show. Lily turned to me, tears streaming down her face. Are you real? Am I? How do we know? We're real, I said, pulling her into a hug. We're real because we exist to each other. Because we witness each other. Because we refuse to be forgotten. We stood there for a long moment, holding each other, proving our existence through touch and presence and shared memory. Later, much later, we would discover the spaces between the walls. We'd find Adrian, barely alive, scratching words into the wood. We'd find evidence of others, some rescued, some too far gone to remember their own names. We'd try to explain it to authorities, to officials, to anyone who would listen. But in that moment, all that mattered was that we were real. That we existed. That someone remembered us. And that, somehow, was enough to keep the darkness at bay. 3 months later, I still keep every light on in my new apartment. Lily helped me move out of that building within a week. The authorities investigated, found the spaces between walls, found Adrian and 2 others, all alive but traumatized. The building was condemned. Mrs. Chen disappeared before anyone could question her. Some residents reported strange occurrences, others claimed nothing unusual had ever happened. The case remains officially unexplained. Adrian recovered, slowly. He lives with his brother now, in a house where the walls are exactly as thick as they should be. He doesn't like to talk about what happened, but sometimes he texts me late at night, still here. Still real. Are you? And I always answer, yes. Still here. The others we found weren't so lucky. One couldn't remember her name. Another kept insisting he was the replacement, not the original. The third simply stared at mirrors for hours, trying to recognize his own face. The thing about trauma is that it rewires you. Changes you on a fundamental level. And the thing about this particular trauma is that it makes you question the most basic assumption of existence, that you are real. I see Lily twice a week now. Sometimes more. We talk on the phone daily. I've reconnected with other family members, old friends, colleagues. I've built a network of connections, a web of relationships that prove I exist through witness and memory and presence. Because I understand now what those things were. Are. They're not supernatural in the traditional sense. There's something else, manifestations of isolation itself. Urban loneliness made manifest. The modern horror of being surrounded by people yet utterly alone, so disconnected that you could vanish and no one would notice. They feed on that isolation. Need it. Can only exist in the gaps where human connection has failed. I write this down now as a warning and a testament. If you're reading this, if you've isolated yourself, if you've made yourself invisible, stop. Reach out. Call someone. Answer the phone. Show up. Be witnessed. Be remembered. Be real. Because the alternative is. I stop writing, my pen hovering above the page. In the window's reflection, I catch a glimpse of myself. I'm checking, always checking, to make sure my reflection moves when I move. That it blinks when I blink. That the synchronization is perfect. It is. For now. But there's something I haven't told Lily. Something I haven't told anyone. 3 days ago, I received a message from my old phone number, the number I'd abandoned when I moved. The message contained a single photo, me, asleep in this new apartment, taken from inside my bedroom. Yesterday, I heard scratching in the walls. And this morning, when I looked in the mirror while brushing my teeth, my reflection smiled a fraction of a second before I did. The thing about fighting those entities is that you can never be completely sure you won. Did we rescue ourselves? Or did we just think we did? Are Lily and I the originals, or are we the replacements who successfully convinced ourselves we're real? How would we know? How would anyone know? I call Lily 3 times a day now. Need to hear her voice, need her to confirm that I sound right, that I seem right, that I'm still me. She does the same. We're each other's reality checks, each other's proof of existence. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm alone, I wonder. Did Lily rescue me? Or did she rescue the thing that replaced me, and the real me is still in those walls, scratching messages that no one will ever read? I look at my hands. They're my hands, same fingers, same scar from a childhood bike accident, same everything. I remember my life, my memories, my identity. I feel real. But didn't Adrian feel real too, right up until he didn't? The uncertainty is what gets you. Not knowing. Never being able to know for sure. Living with the possibility that you might be the copy, might be the replacement, might be the thing that convinced someone else, convinced yourself, that you're real when you're not. That's the real horror. Not monsters in the walls. Not doppelgangers wearing your face. But the possibility that you are not who you think you are, and you might never know the truth. I keep the lights on. I answer every call. I show up for every meeting, every dinner, every invitation. I maintain my connections obsessively, desperately, because they're all that stands between me and dissolution. But I also keep a notebook by my bed. And every morning, I write down who I am. What I remember. What makes me real. Just in case. Just to prove, if only to myself, that I still exist. Today I wrote, I am real. Lily knows me. Others know me. I am witnessed. I am remembered. I am here. Tomorrow I'll write it again. And the day after. And the day after that. Because the alternative, the possibility that I'm already gone, already replaced, already scratching at walls in some dark space while something else lives my life, is too terrible to accept. So I keep writing. Keep connecting. Keep existing as hard as I can. And I watch my reflection very, very carefully. Just last night, I could have sworn I saw it wave. Not when I waved. Not in response to my movement. Just a slow, deliberate wave while I stood perfectly still. But when I looked directly at it, the reflection was normal again. Perfectly synchronized. Perfectly me. So I'm left with the question that will haunt me for the rest of my life, however long that life may be, however real it may prove to be. Am I the person writing this? Or am I the one trapped in the walls, watching someone else write it, screaming at a reflection that can no longer hear me? I don't know. I can never know. And that uncertainty, that fundamental doubt about your own existence, is a horror more profound than any monster. I keep the lights on now. I talk to neighbors. I answer calls. Not because I'm afraid of what's out there, but because I know what happens when no one remembers you existed at all. You become a story someone tells. A warning. A cautionary tale. Or maybe you're already that story. Maybe we all are.